Should nothing of our efforts stand, no legacy survive, unless the Lord does raise the house in vain, its builders strive. To you who boast tomorrow's gain, tell me, what is your life? A mist that vanishes at dawn, all glory be to Christ.
Hello, my name is Pastor Jeremy Cleveland. I'm the pastor at Church of the Open Bible. And again, I'm excited for you to join us with our Proverbs podcast project as we go through a chapter of Proverbs a day. We all know that things have their proper places, that things work best when they're in their proper place. Like how the proper place for old chewed bubble gum is the garbage, right? And not to be popped again into someone's mouth. Or how the proper place for a butter knife is the dinner table and not for exploring an electrical outlet. There are proper places for all that you encounter in life, where they were intended to work, places where they work best. And when they're not placed there, sometimes it can be humorous or make us cringe, but sometimes it can be far worse. And this is what we find in Proverbs 3, the wisdom of putting things in their proper places and why. Let's pick it up in Proverbs 3, verse 1. My son, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For the length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart, so you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof, for the Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding. For the gain from her is better than gain from silver, and her profit better than gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. Those who hold her fast are called blessed. The Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding he established the heavens. By his knowledge the deeps broke open, and the clouds dropped down the dew. My son, do not lose sight of these. Keep sound wisdom and discretion, and they will be life for your soul and adornment for your neck. Then you will walk on your way securely, and your foot will not stumble. If you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Do not be afraid of sudden terror or of the ruin of the wicked when it comes. For the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to do it. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come again. Tomorrow I will give it, when you have it with you. Do not plan evil against your neighbor who dwells trustingly beside you. Do not contend with a man for no reason, when he has done you no harm. Do not envy a man of violence, and do not choose any of his ways. For the devious person is an abomination to the Lord, but the upright are in his confidence. The Lord's curse is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the dwelling of the righteous. Towards the scorners he is scornful, but to the humble he gives favor. The wise will inherit honor, but fools get disgrace. Our chapter continues the education of the son, and this is an education in the school of life. And it begins with a call for the son to listen to the instruction and teaching of his father and mother. in chapter 1, verse 8. This deepens to accept the Father's words in chapters 2, verse 1. And then here in chapter 3, we have the call for the Son to keep the Father's teaching and commands in his heart, to hold to them, to guard them. Listen, accept, keep. At this point, the Son has committed himself to his Father's teaching. But what does it look like to uphold them? What does it look like to fulfill his obligations? We find that places matter here. And the first is where you place your trust. You know these verses, but we'll read them again in verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. The Father says, when it comes to your trust, this is where you must place it. This matters most. Where you place your trust, who you lean on, that has to be the Lord. Place your trust in the Lord. And the Father expounds on this ultimate trust in the next couple verses as he touches on morality, ownership, and correction. These are the all your ways of verse 6. And where you place your trust, or to whom you give it, is the most crucial placement of all. But if there's a proper place for our trust, then there must also be an improper place, misplaced trust. And there is, if we look closer at our verses. It says, lean not on your own understanding. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Do not despise the Lord's discipline. To misplace your trust is to place it in you. And the Father moves on from describing where the Son should place his trust to where he should place his desire in verse 13. What do you desire, Son? Silver, gold, rubies, wealth? Or maybe you're much more modest, just pleasant ways, peace. Or maybe you just want life itself, a good, full life. Well, the Father says, your desire would be misplaced if you placed it in any of these. Place your desire in wisdom, the wisdom of God, the wisdom God used to create the world with. This is where you should place your desire. Look at verse 15. Nothing you desire can compare with her, with wisdom. That's pretty outrageous. But it means that if one desires above all else to live according to how God created the world, provision, peace, and abundant life will come as a result. That's the irony of much of our desire, isn't it? We place it in things that can only come about if we live according to God's designs. Or we place it in things that will not last. If we were able to look at the desires of our hearts, the wish lists of our souls, where would we find God's wisdom? What would we find placed above our desire for wisdom? To misplace your desires, to place it in the world, in what I think is valuable, to place your desire in God's wisdom, and you will find a peace that is secure and life, abundant life that lasts forever. And place your trust in the Lord, place your desire in wisdom, and lastly, place your service in others. You know, the final verses of our chapter show how a right relationship with God, a relationship of trust and desiring his wisdom, moves one to a right relationship with others. The Father says, when you trust in the Lord, it's not just for your own well-being, it's for the well-being of others. As you are blessed, it is not just for you, but for you to bless others. So give when you can. Don't seek to get rid of the needy. Don't be malicious or greedy with others. To misplace your service is to place it in you. Service for me, not for others, but from others. You should notice a bit of a pattern in this chapter of putting things in their proper places. You should notice a bit of a pattern about where we tend to misplace things, important things like trust, desire, and service. Throughout these first 3 chapters of Proverbs, but especially in this chapter, we see the temptation to live in a fantasy world. In fact, much of our world lives this way. Many of us live in this make-believe world, and at the core of this fantasy is that this world centers around me. We believe the illusion that we can find life for ourselves on our own. So we place our trust in ourselves. We fool ourselves into thinking that we can judge what is good and evil. We believe that we actually own what we have, that it came about by our own strength. And perhaps most ironically, in this fantasy world, there's no room for us to be corrected, to be disciplined. But it's all just a facade, and not a cute sort of laugh-it-off child's play, but a dangerous, even deadly game. Living in this fantasy causes things to be misplaced, and the results are never-ending worry, insecurity, dissatisfaction, and ultimately death. So the wisdom of our chapter encourages us to give up this self-centered fantasy and replace it with what actually is God-centered reality. If God created the world, if he designed it and brought about life, if that is true, then he is at the center and not you. He is the foundation, the source, and things need to be placed with reference to him. My trust needs to be placed in him, not me. And trust placed in who is most trustworthy is trust well placed. Again, trust is less about expecting to receive and more about expecting to obey. So if you're single and frustrated, trusting God does not mean waiting for God to provide you with a spouse. Rather, trusting God means obeying him where he has you today, living fully according to his will in the present, not waiting to live in the future. Secondly, trusting God puts things in their proper place. We can get confused about the place of loving God, loving things, and loving others. And when we trust God, when we get that right, the other things fall into place. And you'll notice that when we forget God, we tend to forget others. When we begin to use God for our own means, we'll inevitably end up using others. So where have you placed your trust? Maybe it's in your family. If you lost them, you'd have nothing. Or maybe your trust is ultimately in what you do, in your own abilities. But if you lose those, what then? Maybe your trust is in what you've made, what you've built or put aside. But is that enough? What if it's not? Put your trust in the Lord, the only secure foundation. And trusting in the Lord begins by believing that Jesus Christ died for your sins and rose again. And it continues by living out that relationship in the grace to obey his word. Go in peace.